Well, this is, this is something that gets thrown at him repeatedly, and most often by his great rival in Illinois politics, who's Stephen Douglas. And these men, they knew each other as young men. They were not unfriendly. I mean, Illinois politics was a small world, and then the state grew, but they knew each other from way back. They were both lawyers, always in different parties. But they start going head-to-head beginning in 1854. Lincoln tries to be elected as a senator by the Illinois legislature in 1855. That doesn't work. Then he runs against Douglas in 1858. Douglas narrowly wins. And then finally they run against each other for president in 1860. So, and Douglas is a star of the Democratic Party. I mean, he has a meteoric career. He gets in the Senate very young. He's at Henry Clay's right hand, helping him do the Compromise of 1850, which is Clay's last great compromise. And then Douglas kicks his own compromise over in 1854 with the Kansas-Nebraska bill. So Lincoln and Douglas are these two men going back and forth. And Douglas has his own vision of the Founding Fathers. And he says the Founding Fathers made this country half slave and half free. And look at its success. Look how we've grown. Look how we've prospered. We can keep it that way forever. Why not do it and just have the states not bother the other states about their internal arrangements? And so Lincoln has to make a somewhat subtle counter-argument. He says the founders did not make this country half slave and half free. They found it that way. Slavery was already existing. When all the Founding Fathers were born, slavery was up and running in this country. They did not know how to get rid of it. How would you do it? They didn't know. But what they did do, says Lincoln, is they put it in the course of ultimate extinction. Now, how did they do that? They prevented it from expanding to the Northwest Territory, which they did in 1787. And this was when the Constitution was being written. It's the old Congress, the one-house Continental Congress, that passes the Northwest Ordinance in the summer of 1787. And some of the men who are our delegates to the Constitutional Convention are also congressmen. So they're both debating the Constitution in Philadelphia, and they're voting on the Northwest Ordinance in New York in the same summer. They also say in the Constitution that the slave trade can be forbidden beginning in 1808, and that is done. So Lincoln says they cut off its expansion in one direction, they forbade its expansion in one direction, and they cut off its supply in the other. And they hoped that it would wither away. Well, it didn't. It continued to grow. But Lincoln says this was their hope, and look at the language of the Declaration of Independence, which everybody signed off on, all 13 states, even though all 13 states had slavery in 1776. All of them did. But they all signed the Declaration of Independence. Now then Douglas says, well, that was only for white men. Douglas says this in the Lincoln-Douglas debates in 1858. He says this was for men of the white race of European descent. It did not apply to Negroes or to inferior and degraded races such as Indians or Fijis or Malays. That's what Douglas says. And then Lincoln says, no, men is men. I mean, that's what it means. And and then Douglas will come back, well, then you must be saying Negroes and white people are equal. And probably what you really want is race mixing. I mean, this was a Democratic charge throughout the 1850s and 60s. And in fact, the word miscegenation was invented by Democratic journalists for the 1864 election, because that's what Republicans wanted. And Lincoln's response is, I am not saying that a black woman is my equal in all respects, but in her right to eat the bread that she makes with her own hands, she is the equal of me and of any man. And he says that over and over again.